Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to create a seller bot for Waxpeer platform. Waxpeer is basically a marketplace where you can trade your CSGO skins and assets like knives and guns. And I'm going to show you the entire process from to finalizing on the logo to finally making it live. And I'm planning to use Next.js for the front end, and there'll be a part where we'll need something for cron jobs. My initial hypothesis is that we are going to use Python script for that, but we are going to discuss that with ChatGPT, and who knows, ChatGPT might suggest something which is better for that part. All right, enough talk. Let's get started. So in this section, we are going to decide on a name and logo. I'm going to use ChatGPT for that, and here is a prompt that I'm going to give it. So I'm going to tell it what Waxpeer is. Then I'm going to tell it that I'm planning to create a bot for selling my items on Waxpeer, and the bot will basically undercut other sellers based on some parameters that are set by the logged in user. And I'm telling it that I am requesting its help on the name and logo. The name should reflect trust and security in some sense, because I've seen that Waxpeer users are very skeptical, and even if I search for Waxpeer, the second search result that you get is Waxpeer scam on Reddit, which is not very good for the platform brand, but it is there for some reason. Although Waxpeer is a credited, trustworthy platform, so that's why I'm creating a seller bot for that. And the next thing that I'm telling ChatGPT is that for logo, give me some elements which can be used in the logo. So these are going to be like SVG elements. So let's see what results ChatGPT has given us. So it's trust flow, secure swap, safe skin, guard trade, forte trade. So these are good. I don't want to spend too much time on deciding the name and logo, so we are just going to check which of these are available as a domain. ShieldPeer.in is available and .com is also available. So we are going to go with, I think, ShieldPeer. And for logo elements, let's see. So since the name is ShieldPeer, we are going to have shield element and CSGO elements like weapon and skins. So I am going to use weapons. We have decided on our domain. It is going to be ShieldPeer. It represents trust and it represents the peer-to-peer trading that we are going to support. Then we have also decided on the logo. The logo is going to be this yellow circle with a shield icon, and in the middle we are going to use the army soldier icon from CSGO. Now the next steps are basically to define the system requirements, the features, and then we are going to build it. So now we have created a GitHub repository for that, and we have connected it to Vercel, and we have also connected Vercel to our domain provider. I have added an A record and a CNAME record for the website. So I have created the landing page for ShieldPeer, and I have created 4 sections right now. One is the hero section where we are showing our main proposition, which is basically we are optimizing trading for gamers and collectors, and we are saying that our bot will work tirelessly for them, optimizing their price strategy based on other sellers, and we are going to integrate it with PriceEmpire and Waxpeer. And there are 2 CTAs here. The main one is get started. So right now I'll keep the platform for free, so we want to get some users onboarded and we want to get some testimonials from them and see how this platform is helping them. And once we have some testimonials, then I'm going to move this to a paid plan. So that is the current strategy. And then there is the problem section. So we want to agitate the user by reflecting on the problem that they have right now in their workflow, and then we propose our solution. So we are saying that 80% of the assets sold on Steam are sold by top 1% of the sellers. And why they are able to do that? Because speed is everything, and yet only a chosen few are optimizing their price strategy using ShieldPeer. So that is the problem that we are keeping in front of our potential users, and we are saying that okay, you are spending almost a decade or so many years acquiring these assets, but you don't want to set up automations to capture that earning potential. So that is the problem statement. Then there is the pricing page, and first we want to highlight that we are optimizing their selling strategy at lightning fast speed. So our main proposition is basically speed of selling and undercutting, and we are showing that okay, if these 10 slots get filled, it will be $490, but currently it is $0 per year for the first year subscription, and we are just highlighting our. Then we are saying that get started, which is our main CTA here, and highlighting that no credit card is required for signing up. Then there are some frequently asked questions which will be most relevant to such kind of platform, that okay, how it is going to determine the pricing strategy, is it secure? And then there is a standard footer with support and pricing in terms of services and privacy policy. I have also integrated this with sign in with Google using NextAuth. So NextAuth is a popular library used by multiple organizations at scale. I'm currently keeping only sign in with Google because I want my users to use a genuine account. I don't want them to use a disposable email where they can get an OTP and just sign up. I don't want that. I also don't want to set up forgot password and reset password and all those things because that would take time, and I don't think that's necessary for now. So I'm just going to keep it as sign in with Google, and let me sign in with one of the accounts. Currently it will take me to a coming soon page. Basically I have not implemented the features right now. I've just implemented this part. Then we have only this crisp chat support, so they can send a message if they want to, and for that you can find the setup instructions on Crisp platform. For database and authentication I am using Superbase. So let me show you the code now. Let me walk you through the code. We have app directory where we have our routes and our API paths. First is terms of service and privacy policy. There is not much there. There is just static content in those files, which is our privacy policy and terms of service. Then we have our layout.tsx, which is the root layout. It is going to be applied to every page inside our app directory. Then we have our page.tsx where we are basically saying that coming soon. We have our navbar, hero, component problem, component pricing, FAQ, and footer. Then we have our auth page where we have our sign in with Google, but we are using Superbase auth helper Next.js. So setting next auth is quite simple. The first thing you need to do is set up your environment variables like next public Superbase URL, next public Superbase NN key, your Google ID and Google secret. In components, we have that lamp for coming soon page. We have layout wrapper, which is essentially the wrapper for our entire application, and it is going to contain the Crisp chat, the tooltip and toaster, and our session provider, which is going to manage our logged in user and next top loader for that. So if you go to home, if you click on let's say get started, you see this progress bar on the top of the page. That is because of next top loader. So for setting up next auth, all you need to do is install Superbase related libraries like Superbase auth helpers Next.js, Superbase SSR, Superbase JS, and next auth. Then inside your layout, where I'm wrapping it with layout wrapper, you need to wrap your children prop with session provider, which will import from next auth React. The next step will be basically to set up an API route, which will be hit by next auth, and you need to set up your providers there. So I'm only using Google provider here right now, but you can also have Apple, GitHub, and all other providers. Okta. You are going to specify what strategy you are going to use. Currently I'm using JWT. If you are using any adapter like Prisma adapter or Superbase adapter, you are also going to specify your adapters here. The next step will be basically to set up your callback API route. This route will be hit once confirmation is provided by user on the Google sign-in page. Here what I'm doing is I'm exchanging the code given by Google with a session JWT token with Superbase. We are going to just redirect them to the callback URL, which I have specified in my config file. Then I have a logout API route where I'm just logging out my user using Superbase client. So if I go to my Google console and go to my ShieldPeer projects, I'll go to APIs and services, and inside that I'll go to credentials. In credentials, I have the ShieldPeer where I'll be specifying the origins. Here I'll be specifying my origins which are allowed like ShieldPeer.n, www.shieldpeer.n, localhost, the Superbase project URL, and the callback URL for all four of those as well. This you will find on your Superbase project page. If I go to Superbase project settings, I have this reference ID. I can copy this and paste that in my Google console. So id.superbase.co. Other thing that you need to do is you need to go to authentication and you need to go to providers. Here you need to specify inside Google client ID, client secret, your callback URL. And you need to go to URL configuration and specify the URLs that you are going to use for callback here as well. That is how you are going to set up next auth in your Next.js project. Next we are going to move to designing the architecture and defining our features. The first feature is I should be able to save my Waxpeer key and PriceEmpire key in not in local storage because we are going to be running scripts, so we need to save it in database, but we're going to encrypt it. The second thing that we need to save for user is whether he wants to undercut other sellers by price or whether he wants to undercut them by percentage. So for example, if an item is selling for $100 and he specifies that okay, I want to undercut by $1 or by 1%, so his item will be listed at $99. At the next minute, let's say the same item was listed at $50 by the other seller. Now the same item will be listed by us for $49. Okay, so that is going to be one setting. So the next thing is we want him to be able to select the source price. So if we go to our desktop on PriceEmpire, which we are going to use for source prices of the items. So here you see the prices are available from all of different marketplaces like White Market, ShadowPay, TradeIt, Gamerplay, Buff, and Buff Market, CS2Go, Bitskin. So these are the source prices, and this is the price that we are going to use as our reference, which is going to be our basically base price. And the pricing for these assets also changes based on their conditions. So like battles card, or thing we want them to do is whether they want to pause the bot or keep the bot running. How frequently do we want to hit their PriceEmpire API key, because it has some rate limits as well, and they are going to be paying for certain subscription. Let's say, so you see for developers it is $99 per month, data for 42 marketplaces, prices updated every hour. So the prices here are going to be updated every hour, so there is no point in hitting this API for every minute or so. It makes only sense to hit this API once every hour and just cache those base prices. The minimum that we are going to support is 60 minutes, because that is the update frequency of PriceEmpire. It kind of also depends on whether they are using it for their company or for just for the developers. The same feature we also want to provide for fetching the float. Float is basically the condition of the item, and then the next thing that we want them to be able to do is how frequently do they want their items to be listed on Waxpeer. And now that I think about it, there are many other platforms like Waxpeer where they can trade their items on. So we are going to support multiple platforms, and they will be able to select all these for different platforms, and they'll be able to enable which platform do they want to trade on, which platform do they don't want to trade on. Let's see what is the rate limit for Waxpeer API. 60 requests per minute for regular users, disabled for partners. And the last feature that we have is we want them to be able to have settings for products in different price range. This will help them basically undercut certain items which are, let's say, in the range of $10 to $30 on a different percentage basis, and the items which are in the $100 to $1,000 in a different percentage basis. The next feature that we'll have is they should be able to see their inventory. Maybe for each item they want to specify a different setting. Then we also want to support multiple platforms like Waxpeer, Bitskin in future. So then there is going to be the listings page where we'll show current listings, and we'll show what is the status of that listing. Is it live or is it paused? What is the float? What is the source price? What is the current price that we have listed it on? What is the price percentage that we are considering for that particular item? So I think that's it for the features. So now let's jump into the architecture. The thing that we need to worry about is whether we want to have a separate cron job running for each user that signs up on our platform, so they get the best speed and there is a dedicated worker running for them. Or do we want to run one worker which fetches all the data from our database and runs the listings and all those things for all the users just through that one worker? The thing we might want to consider is, do we want to run multiple workers, like run a worker for fetching the source prices from PriceEmpire, then run a worker for listing the items separately, or do we want to have it as one worker running both the things? So I think we are definitely going to have separate workers for fetching the prices and updating that in our database, and a worker for listing the items on these marketplaces. What about the workers for users? Where do we want to run these workers? Let's see, Next.js have anything about. Let's see how we can run cron jobs in Next.js. We'll have two cron jobs running. One will be running every minute, updating the listings on these marketplaces, and one is going to run every hour, fetching float and price data from PriceEmpire. So I have set up this settings page for ShieldPeer, and I'll now walk you through the code and the tools that I've used to set up this page. My entire cost of running this platform right now is only the cost for domain. I'm not paying for anything else. I'm using Vercel for deployment. I'm using Clarity for recording user sessions, which is free. I'm using Zoho Mail for a free workspace email. I'm using Supabase for database and authentication. For analytics, I'm using Google Analytics. So it is all free. I don't have any cost of running this platform. It is just going to be that $8 or $10 that I spent on the domain, which I'm going to pay for this on yearly basis. So now let me walk you through the settings that I have created for ShieldPeer. So in settings, basically every collector or trader can manage their PriceEmpire and Waxpeer API keys. Then they can pause the bot or they can turn it on again. In undercut parameters, they can specify the source they want to use. So we have a list of all these sources which can be used for the base price of the item that they're trading. Then they can choose whether they want to undercut by price or do they want to undercut by percentage. If they select undercut by price, they need to specify their price here. So let's say I'm going to undercut that item by $0.93, and if they choose percentage, this setting will get activated, which is like it is going to undercut by 1%. So if other seller is listing the item at $100, I'm going to undercut that item by 1%, which is going to make my listing at $99. Then the next section is basically price ranges. So you need to have at least one price range in your account. It can be from 0 to $100,000. So every item falls within that range. And what you need to specify is first source price min, which is basically the source price of the item. And this, if the item source price is $10, then that should fall between this source price min and source price max. Then listing price min and listing price max. So basically, after I undercut other seller, the price at which I'm going to list this item at should fall between this minimum and maximum, otherwise I'm not going to list it. Then you have, if there is no one to undercut, like if there is an item which only you are selling and in the listing price range that you have specified there is no one to undercut, then what we need to do, you need to specify that here. You can specify two things: either we list it at the maximum listing price. So if you specify 130% here and the item is $100, we are going to list it at the source price is $100, we are going to list it at $130. That is one option you have. Other option is list price if no one to undercut. So you can specify a specific percentage for this particular case, that there is no one to undercut and I want to list it at a specific percentage. So I'll select this and specify 140% or 150%. So it will list that item at $140 if the source price is $100. Then the last option is always undercut by percentage if listing price is greater than a particular value. So this is basically your threshold price. Even if you specify that I want to undercut by price as a general setting in the option that I showed you before, if the listing price goes above this particular value, so let's say 140%, if the listing price goes above 140%, then I don't want to undercut by price, instead I want to undercut it by percentage. So this will override your undercut by price setting. So this is very important, and the minimum price range that you need to have is 1, so that at least there are some items that are falling between price range. And then you can have multiple price ranges and you can specify settings for each price range differently. There are going to be item wise settings as well, which you can specify in your inventory, and I have not added that yet. So the inventory and the logs page is basically empty right now. ShieldPeer homepage or your dashboard is also empty right now. So on the homepage of ShieldPeer, we are going to show some statistics like how many times we have undercut other sellers, what items are currently listed, and all those stats. Then in the inventory, we are going to show items are available in your inventory in your Steam account for different games like Dota or Rust or CSGO. In logs, we are going to show there may be items which are not falling within a particular price range. So what action did our bot take because of your price ranges? All those logs you will be able to see on your logs page, and based on that you'll be changing your price range so that the next time bot runs for that particular item, it takes a new price range into consideration, or maybe a new setting into consideration. So these are going to be the pages, and for making these components I'm using ShardCN, which is a free UI library. It is not a package we can install on our code. I have used that because I don't want to spend too much time building this from scratch when we don't need to reinvent the wheel. Let me walk you through the code now. I have also added Google Analytics, Clarity, and a bunch of other tools for recording our user sessions and seeing user behavior. Apart from that, I have specified row level policies for our tables. In our tables, I have specified a row level policy where an authenticated user can only access rows where the user ID matches with the authenticated user. So because security is a very big pain point of these kind of users, so I am making sure that they are logged in, they can only access rows which they have created through their user ID, and this ensures that they cannot access other people's data by mistake or by any vulnerability. So as long as our row level policies are secured, that won't happen. So in our environment variables, we have two new additions. One is next public clarity for recording our user sessions, and one is next public GA for our Google Analytics. Now if we go over to SRC wrappers layout wrapper, you would see that I have added this script for clarity Microsoft, which will record our user sessions, and I have used that environment variable which I just showed you. The next thing I have added is Google Analytics component, which I have imported from next third parties Google, and this is going to record user activity and events. The entry point for our settings page is under our app router settings page.tsx, and here we have a few things. One is the navbar component which we are reusing, and we have inventory logs. Settings are our main CTA, and it is going to show our logo and homepage link. The next thing you have is a main element tag, and under that you're going to have a grid which is responsive. So we'll have grid calls, one for mobile, and for large screens following 768 pixels we are going to use grid calls too. And in that we have our secret component, bot status component, undercut parameters, and price ranges. And secrets, bot status, and undercut parameters are using the settings Supabase or Postgres table. So we are going to fetch settings once using use effect in this settings component, and we are going to hit our API settings route, and it will give us some data which we are setting in our use state using our use state hook in setting component, and then we are passing all those settings to all these three components at the same time. Let's see our API route from where we are getting those settings. So in under API, under settings in the root file, we are specifying a get function. This function will get hit by the APIs, and we are creating our Supabase client, and we are just fetching a single record from settings which contains all the fields for our setting table. And why this is going to return only one file which is return only one row which is valid, because if we go to our Supabase project tables, I have specified that for settings table we have our user ID as unique. If I edit it, you'll see that user ID is unique, so we'll only have one row under settings for a particular user. And when we are passing that to our secrets component, we are using use effect hook to say that whenever the setting changes, we are resetting the form values, and for form we are using use form from React form, and we are using Zod for form validation and form formatting. The same thing is happening in undercut parameters. We have the same use effect hook, and we have a on submit function which is hitting the API settings route where post request. We are just passing this data from our form using handle submit. So form.handle submit on submit. We are doing the same thing in undercut parameters, secrets, and bot status, because the schema of our settings table looks something like this. So if I go to types database, I can see that settings will have ID created at user ID, PriceEmpire, source, undercut by price, and all these fields. Each pause is being used for managing the bot status. So whether it is running or whether it is in the paused state. Then we have a price range table which has source price min and max, listing price min and max, then some parameters. Let me show you the price range component as well. So we are using all these components from our UI directory. Here we have all the components that we have basically added through shatcn, and in shatcn you can use this command npx shatcn UI latest add, and whatever component that you want to add, for example dialog, you can, when you add this command, that component will get added to your components UI directory. So for example, we have this here, and you can set up different paths for your directory and your utils directory and your tailwind config. For that you need to create this components.json file in the root of your folder, and this will specify the shatcn schema, the style that you are going to use, New York, or there are two options provided by shatcn for free, which is New York and default. And tailwind, you can specify the location of tailwind file, your global CSS file, the base color that is going to use CSS variables in your page or not, is there any prefix for your tailwind classes, then your aliases for components and utils. You can specify all these details here. So I have added a coming soon page for the dashboard. Next, we are going to implement this next. So in the settings, I have made some changes. I am showing now the logo of Waxpeer and PriceEmpire. Along with that, I'm also taking Steam ID as input from the user so that we can use the inventory endpoint of PriceEmpire to fetch their entire inventory directly. They don't have to manually add that. Then that are all the changes that I've made in the settings page. Now I have also implemented the logs and inventory page. So for that, first let me show you the data tables. So if I go to Supabase and if I go to database tables, so I've added a bunch of tables now to incorporate the logs and listings and items and inventory. So one table is Steam user. Here I'm storing the avatar, the name, the Steam ID, and what else are we saying here? So see, we are saving the Steam ID, user ID, country, image, name, created at and ID. Currently I'm only using their Steam ID and image to show kind of a badge on their inventory page. And then we have our settings table. There is not much changes to that particular table, but let me still show you what changes I've made in the settings table. So now there is Steam ID column as well in the settings table, and the rest is same. Yeah, one more change is instead of is paused, I'm using is running as a flag. So I've added price history table because we are going to use price history endpoint from PriceEmpire to show a linear graph or line graph to show the price history of a particular item. Here we are just storing price history as a JSON, the exact JSON that we are going to get from PriceEmpire. The JSON is very simple. It's just the market hash name of the item and then a string, an array of numbers. The numbers are basically the prices. It is a very simple JSON. Then you have your logs folder. In logs folder, there is a message, there is a type which represents whether it is a success or failure or it is a warning. Then we have a metadata where we can store basically our item details, our listing details if it is related to that. Then we have our name and image. That's it. And then we have our listing table. We still haven't done much with the listing table, so we don't need to look at that right now. Then we have our items table where we have majority of our data. Then we have some item rating table. So in item table, basically we are going to have all the fields that PriceEmpire is giving us in the inventory API response. We have our asset ID, which is the Steam asset ID. Then there is the name, type, float, basically, which is condition, is active, whether the bot is maintaining this item as a listing on the marketplace or not. Updated at price, prices. Price is basically the price corresponding to the source that they have selected in the settings. Then we have prices. Prices can have price from multiple sources. So PriceEmpire will give us maybe 20-30 sources, and all those prices will be stored here. Prices don't change too frequently, so we can run that updation logic. Earlier I was thinking that I'll run that updation logic on an hourly basis, so but I forgot that in Vercel's free tier you can only run a cron job on a daily basis at the minimum side. So I'm going to shift that to either AWS or GCP into some serverless function and serverless function with a scheduler, or I'm not going to do that right now because I'll only do that if there is a scale. Then we have pattern, trade log, all the standard stuff. App ID is basically the game ID. So CSGO has a particular game ID, then Dota will have a separate app ID. So that app ID is basically the game ID. Then we have image, quality, family, category, market hash name. Market hash name is important because it is, strangely enough, each listing on the marketplace is not identified by a particular listing ID. Instead, Steam uses a market hash name. Then we have liquidity, which is important, rarity, color, exterior, which is whether it's factory new or worn out or that. Alright, so that is the item table. Let's look at the item settings table. Item settings table has one foreign key which is linked to the items table, and the other details are basically replica of the general settings. It's just that these are going to be specifically applied for this particular item. That is our database schema. I have denormalized the database so that I don't need to use joins that much. Denormalization at the level of items where I need to store the name and image is mostly what I've done. I'm fine with that. I don't think that trade-off is too much of an issue right now. Let me show you the logs page. In the logs page, when you go to your logs page for the first time, maybe you want to see how the logs are going to look like. I wanted to do that for my account as well because I don't have the bot running right now. So you can see some dummy data by clicking on show me dummy data, and here you will see a few details like the type of log, whether it's a success or failure or whether it is a caution log. Then you will see the name of the item or whether it was for a platform. So it will show PriceEmpire if some API failed for PriceEmpire, and it will show the detail here, like whether the API key is not set yet or why it failed. And then if the APIs are set correctly, then you'll see item level logs where you'll see that okay, this item we could not fetch the price for this item. Particular item could not be listed because item parameters were such that we could not come up with a good enough price for this item. So these are logs, and then you can copy the log ID if you need some support, or if you have some doubt or query, you can send that over email and we'll take a look at that. You can search your logs by messages. In the inventory page, I've done the same thing. You can go to it, and if you don't have the data, you can see some dummy data. And there are a few things that we are showing here. First is whether the item is currently being maintained by bot on the listings in the marketplace. Second, the rarity. What is the rarity of the item? So it is in red. That means it is very rare. The higher the rarity, the higher the price. So you can see that unbuffed, this particular item is having a price of 919,000, almost $1 million. And then this is the float value of this condition of this item, float value of this item. And then you can specify settings at an item level by going to item settings page, and here you'll also see, so in the item settings page you will see this button to activate your item or deactivate your item. Then you'll see your price history here. These are demo prices because I don't have my bot running yet. Then you'll see your item level settings. the same settings that you have in your general dashboard. Then you also be able to delete a particular item if you want to for some reason. But you should be careful while deleting the item, because once you delete it, it will be added the next time the bot runs, which is going to be the next day basically. So it won't, you won't be able to add the item before the next day. Let me walk you through the code. So first thing is I have created this virtual.json where I have crons, and I'm meeting my API PriceEmpire route. This schedule is for daily. I wanted it to be uh, running every 60 minutes, but that's not possible with Vercel's free tier. Then I have made some changes in the repository. So I have added security, contributing, code of conduct, license, and some GitHub issue templates and pull request templates, so that it is more open source, contributions friendly. Then some other changes that I have made is added some demo or dummy data in the public folder, so that we can show some data even if we don't have an API key just yet. Then I have created this bot, which is a Python bot. Last time I said that I'll discuss this with ChatGPT, and I did discuss it. And finally, we came up with the conclusion that Python scripts will be the best for listing the items, and we'll use a cron job for fetching the prices, because that is going to be low frequency operation, but listing the items needs to be very fast. So we are going to keep it running as a daemon job using supervisor on Google Cloud, because Google Cloud has a free tier compute, which I can use for these daemon scripts, and we can add as many daemon scripts as we want. APIs, let's look at the first one, which is Steam. So here we are just entering, so here we are fetching the Steam user, and the Steam user is getting set in the PriceEmpire API, which is getting hit by the cron job. So in the PriceEmpire route, we are doing two things. We are fetching the settings of every user, and for every user what we are doing is, first we are fetching the inventory from PriceEmpire, and we are making sure that API key is set, otherwise we are just raising errors and we are logging those errors. And we are fetching price, and we are saving that price, we are saving the price history and the price along with the inventory in the Superbase tables, and we are also saving the logs respectively. That's all that is going on here. Also we are saving the user, so wait, Superbase dot from Steam user, so we are saving the Steam ID, name, image, country, and user ID here. Then we have our logs API route, where we are just fetching the logs from the database. We don't have any update or delete operation for logs yet. I don't think we need that, because we can store as many logs as we want right now. And then we have our price ranges API. I think we have already covered that. Settings, item wise settings, I have kept it under settings, and then we are using a dynamic route using slugs. So we are making the item ID as our parameter, and here we are just fetching the item. We are matching the item ID column in the item settings, and we are returning a single row, because each item will have only one row in item settings table. Item ID is unique in the item settings table. What else we have? We have item, in item we have price history. So we are fetching the price history that we just stored in our table, and we are making sure that we are fetching the latest one, and we are fetching only one record. From that record we are just going to choose the price array using our market hash name, which we are passing as payload. Here we have just like updation of items. In items there is only one field that the user can update, which is active. He can delete the item and he's going to see the item data, so there is no insert item right now. Then we have our inventory, which is also very simple. And for the graph that I just showed you, let me show you. For this graph we are using D3 based package, which is Nevo. I have worked with it before as well, so Nevo is a particularly handy package when it comes to all type of charts, and these are D3 charts, so it is very flexible and configurable as well. So you can create canvas based charts or API based charts or direct HTML based charts. I prefer the canvas ones because that is more performant and it is very fast. The component for Nevo, let me just show you that as well quickly. So in components we have UI. In UI we are going to have line graph, and in line graph we have imported our responsive line from Nevo line, and we are using that within our settings item page. line graph. Also, one more thing I did is I added a prettier RC file and specified this import order. It keeps the code very clean and it's easy to navigate through the import statements this way. You need to just install a plugin for prettier and it will do that automatically for you. So that is it. Let's move on to the next section, which is going to be the main dashboard. And we also need to create the Python script for Waxpeer. So I have created the dashboard for our ShieldPeer platform, and there are a few sections. First, I'm showing some statistics using T3 pie chart and calendar graph, and I'm showing some general stats which will help the user gain visibility of what's happening. So I'm showing that there are 440 items in his inventory right now. The total worth of his inventory is $6.2 million, and we are actively trading 5 items using the ShieldPeer bot on the Waxpeer marketplace, and we're showing that the bot ran last on June 7, 2024 at 3:20. So through this calendar graph, we are showing that on a particular day how many times the bot ran on their items for fetching prices and updating their listings on the Steam marketplace. Then we are also showing a game-wise inventory pie chart, which will tell them how many assets do they own for a particular game. For example, CS:GO, in this dummy data I have $1,000 worth of items. For Dota I have $500 and so on. Then we have our listings section. So these are the listings the bot has created on Waxpeer marketplace, and the main data that we are showing here are what is the price that we listed the item at, and what was the float value, image, the rarity, everything else is coming from the inventory. Just the listed price is specific to this particular page. Then I have made some changes in our Supabase count. So in Supabase I have created this view which is logs per day for fetching our bot activity, and this logs per day is basically aggregating our logs based on created at date. Then I have also created one edge function, so which notifies me when a new user signs up, triggers an email using resend. I'm using resend for emails for this project. Resend will basically send me an email saying that hey, this new user signed up on your platform. I've also added a composite unique key on items table where asset ID and user ID columns together will be unique for that particular thing. And in the landing page I've made a change where I've added this button of stars on GitHub, and I'm also showing Steam icon here because we are now taking Steam ID as well for integration. So this dashboard is completely ready. I don't think there is anything pending in this particular platform from the usage point of view. Only thing that we need to work on now is the Python script, which will basically list the items. And let me also show you the code changes that I've made. So we have this Supabase folder which contains our functions, and the edge function is getting triggered from Supabase database webhook. So if I go to my database webhooks, I have enabled the webhooks. On the auth users table, I am triggering this edge function in case of a new insert, and this will basically notify me. And this is the edge function for that, fetching the listing, and it will join the item table as well, so that we get item details which we are going to show in the listings page. I have created two components, listings and statistics. Listings is basically a copy of inventory page with a few changes. We are showing the listed at price along with the source price, and in the statistics table we are responsive calendar from Nevo and pie chart from Nevo, and we are crunching our numbers, ID, label, color and value, so that we can pass that to our pie chart here. I have removed the cron job from Vercel because it was limiting me to fetch the prices on a daily basis. It was not allowing me to go more frequent. So instead, I am running a cron script in the same virtual machine instance from GCP where I'm running my bot as a Docker container. So earlier, we were fetching all the users at once, and in a single for loop, we were fetching prices for each user's inventory and then saving those user inventory along with the prices and price history in the database. But now what I'm doing is in the cron job, I'm fetching all the users. Then for each user, I'm invoking that particular API. In each API call, I'm fetching the prices, the price history for a particular user, and then saving it only for that particular user. So this will basically allow us to bypass Vercel's limit of 60 seconds. So in the hobby tier, Vercel allows you to run your server functions for a maximum duration of 60 seconds, and after that the function will time out. And if let's say 1,000 people are using our platform and I'm fetching prices for all the 1,000 users in a for loop, then obviously 1 minute may not be enough because we have a dependency on PriceEmpire API key in this particular case. I'm just running the Python bot, and the Python bot is running in a while true loop, and we are using async IO library from Python to make it a bit more efficient. We have a logger.py file which is basically creating a logger instance for every file and returning it so that we can log our errors and warnings. Then we have our logic file. It has 4 functions. One is skip due to last run. So since Waxpeer has a rate limit of 2 requests per 2 minutes, we need to check when did the bot ran for this user. So this will basically skip bot iteration if the last run was less than 60 seconds ago. And the next function is filter valid competitor. So if you remember from our settings page, there is a setting for, let me show you. As you see, there is a listing price minimum and listing price maximum. With this function, what we are checking is if the price after undercutting is not falling within that particular range, then we are not going to consider that competitor as a valid competitor. And along with that, we also need to check whether the item that I'm considering a competitor is actually a competitor, or is it from my inventory itself. How we are fetching competitors is we are using the market hash name and we are calling the search API of Waxpeer, which will also return your assets. It won't only return the competitor's asset. Third function is basically filter price range. So this is basically checking whether there is a valid price range for this particular item based on the source price min and source price max value. And the last function is item already listed. We'll use this function to basically check whether we want to create a new listing or we want to update the price of an existing listing. Superbase.py. This basically has our CRUD function, so insert, get, update and delete. Nothing much going on here. Then we have our Waxpeer file, which three functions, which is edit listing price. So if the listing is already present, we are going to update the price, create listing, and last is search item. There is also a difference of price format on Waxpeer and PriceEmpire. So on Waxpeer, 1000 is equal to $1, and on PriceEmpire it is in cents. So like 100 points will be $1. In the bot file, first we are initiating the Superbase client, then we are fetching all the users, which is basically the user settings, and then we are also going to insert logs in our logs table so that user can see when did the bot last ran, what was the response code provided by the Waxpeer or PriceEmpire, or did we update the listing, when did we last update the listing, did we create any new listing. First thing we are checking is whether the setting the bot is running flag is true, whether or not we have the Waxpeer key, and then we are checking when did we last ran the bot, is it less than a minute, then we are going to skip it. The next thing we are going to check is do we have any active items. So if you go to your inventory, by default the items will be inactive, and you'll need to add these items to the active state so that we can start trading these items. You can do that individually or you can activate all of them in one go. If you want to do that individually, you can go to details of particular item and you'll see that toggle active state button. Then we are fetching the listings that we already have, we are fetching the price ranges, and for item in active items we are doing a certain thing. So first thing we are going to do is we are going to check whether an item has item specific settings, and if it has that, we are going to merge it with the price range settings, and if it does not have item specific settings, we are going to use the general settings and merge that with the price range settings. Fetch the search results, check the valid competitors, get the minimum price from those competitors. If there is any, there are no competitors, we are going to use the when no one to undercut setting, and we are going to calculate on that basis. We are going to add the item to listings to update, or if we need to create a listing, we are going to add that to listings to create list. We are going to use the create listing function from Waxpeer, and it will take item ID and price, and in Superbase it will take our listing schema basically, which is going to be user ID, item ID, price, and updated it. And we are also going to add a log that okay, we created a new listing for this particular item at this particular price. And that's it. That's the complete bot. Complete instructions for deploying this bot is in the readme file. I have dockerized this thing, so the deployment should be pretty easy. And if you want to run it on your local, you can just create a virtual environment, install the requirements, which is basically just Superbase, async IO request, and python.env. Create your .env with the .env example. So your Superbase URL, service key, logs directory, and PriceEmpire API URL, which is going to basically src app API PriceEmpire. And this path is exempted from middleware as well using the matchers config. So we have API PriceEmpire in the regex, and it is going to ignore all these routes while it is checking for the session token. And with that, the development of ShieldPeer is complete. And for those of you who stick till now, you get to enjoy the backstory behind ShieldPeer and the next steps that I'm going to take in the upcoming week to get few customers. So the backstory is like this. This is basically a failed freelance project which I'm trying to revive, and why it failed is basically I was working with this trader who is selling Steam assets through Waxpeer and wanted to have this platform for himself and integrated with PriceEmpire. It was a fixed price contract where we had limited time frame and limited budget. There were few problems with this project. One, client could not communicate his ideas and the requirements perfect properly. He could not document the requirements well, and because trading of these assets is such a niche platform to build, it requires intrinsic knowledge around these weapon skins, these assets, what is the lingo of these assets. For example, they have something called float. Float basically tells you what is the condition of an item. The higher the value is, the better the condition is, and the higher the rate you are going to get for that item. So all these kind of lingos you have to get familiar with, and he didn't have a well documented requirements for that project. But all that is fine. It's not that much of an issue. The second problem was he used to lose his temper during some calls when he could not explain the requirements well. And the third problem was he was extremely skeptical about the security of the platform, which you should be, but we are not living in 1990s anymore and should be familiar about security of websites, that even if a website is hosted and you're using a remote database, it does not mean that somebody is going to steal your data. You can have control over complete security of your cloud resources like data and the instances where your website is deployed, and you don't have to worry about that. But he was very skeptical, so he wanted the platform to run on his desktop as an app, and he wanted to run it even when his laptop was closed. So that is not possible. I can't run the platform when your laptop is down. What I suggested to him is, I'll deploy this to an instance, I'll provide you all the instructions on how to set up the instance, on how to connect it to a database, how to set up the database password, so that even I don't have the password for the database. That's all the security that I can provide. I'll walk you through the code so that you know what packages are used, which packages might have some vulnerabilities. Maybe in future you want to get this refactored or introduce some new features, so you can do that. I told him that, and at the time of delivery I did all that, but he refused to have it online. So I had to give him the direct code, and I had to tell him how to basically run it as a development server on his laptop, because he would not allow it to deploy this on a website and then being able to use it as a platform. He was worried about security, that his API keys might get stolen and he will get scammed somehow. So at the time of delivery, I set it up on his laptop and it worked perfectly fine, and he double checked it. Even I gave him a 1 week period where if there was any errors, he would reach out to me and I'll fix those and give him the updated code, tell him where he needs to put the file or some and everything. Now after 2 weeks, he might have deleted some file, maybe the API version changed in Waxpeer or PriceEmpire. He came to me and said the platform is not working and I want a revision. Because it is a fixed price contract and a fixed timeline contract, I cannot give indefinite revisions. I already gave him 2-3 revisions, so I cannot give him like more than that. And he also gave me a 5-star feedback and a review on Upwork when we closed the contract, so it was not like he was unhappy at the time of delivery. But it still left a sour aftertaste, and if he was not that skeptical, I would have forgotten about our terms and conditions that we agreed on. I would have still deployed it on a new website and provided him with the credentials and the database access. But he was not just ready to use it as a website, which was hosted on some other server, API link or something. He was even afraid to click on those links. That's the level of skepticism this person had for security. So that's the backstory. That's how I came across these kind of platforms and how these people have hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of inventory in their Steam assets, and they are selling and trading these through platforms like Waxpeer and GoSkins, and platforms like PriceEmpire exist, which allow you to fetch the latest prices of your assets and see what inventory you have in Steam. So I thought maybe I should redo this as a project, as a short project. I spent a week doing this project. So I started it on Monday, today is Sunday, and I actually completed the development yesterday, but I was so tired that I took half a day off to rest a bit, and now I'm recording the final closing statement. So here are the next steps that I'm going to take to finally maybe get some customers and testimonials. So I'm going to reach out to Waxpeer and PriceEmpire customers, because at this stage they are the only people who are going to use it as beta testers. I'm going to provide a sandbox where you can test out the listings so that your actual items don't get listed at a price which you don't want to list it at. I have completely tested it, by the way, and it's working completely fine, but still I should provide a sandbox access, especially for these kind of platforms where trading is involved. Get feedback from them to improve the platform, so that in future, if other customers are getting onboarded, they are getting a better platform based on the feedback of beta testers, which these people are going to be. And these testimonials, I'm going to put them in the landing page, which will help us build credibility and trust among new website visitors. And I'm not expecting much from this project, because I know the scope of this project is super niche, which is true right now, but maybe in future if it gains some traction, then what we can do is, so if enough people like it, what we can do is, instead of selling their items through Waxpeer, we can integrate Steam completely natively into the platform and allow them to make
trades and sell their inventory directly through ShieldPeer instead of taking a third party route, allowing them to go through Waxpeer. For getting more updates around ShieldPeer, you can follow me on Twitter or LinkedIn. I'll definitely post some updates if people use ShieldPeer and they think this is useful. In any case, the platform is open source. The code is going to be available on GitHub for your use. Maybe you want to use the landing page for your own product, and maybe you want to contribute to this and make it more functional. Maybe you want to contribute to the Steam integration that I just talked about. You can go to my GitHub. The link is going to be in the description. I'm going to put it here on the screen. You can go there and start the repository, fork the repository, understand the code base, and start contributing to it. And hit me up on GitHub, raise an issue if you find something, and I'll definitely help you out if you want to contribute to this project. If you found something valuable in this video, if you learned something, drop a like, comment, subscribe to this channel for following along my journey. See you in the next video. Bye.